And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Chris. Jonna will not be joining me for this one for the Week 1 preseason recap. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification button in the bottom corner just to make sure you see all of our content as it comes out. So let's begin. We have the first game of preseason between the Texans and the Patriots. CJ Stroud had a rough start. He did not look that great. Then again, he only threw the ball 4 times. He had 1 interception on his first drive. But after that, the big takeaway from this game is that Tank Dell is here. Tank Dell is going to be heavily used in this offense, and he should be putting people on notice. Now, we did see a lot of backups, a lot of turnovers. The Patriots defense did look good. Their offense struggled mightily. What I want to say about the Patriots, and I think this is something we need to keep an eye on, is Malik Cunningham throughout the rest of the preseason and see how they use him. He did play wide receiver in the first half of this game and then came in, played quarterback, was 3 of 4, 19 yards, nothing special, but he did have 5 rushes for 34 yards. So I do think that is something to keep an eye on. Pierre Strong looked to be the lead backup to Ramondre Stevenson. He should be getting a lot of the work early and often. I still think we need a lot more to show from these Patriots receivers just to see who's going to be behind Juju and who's really going to take that role. The next game that we had on the dock was the Seahawks and the Vikings. The Seahawks ended up winning this game 24-13. Really some takeaways from this is Zach Charbonnet is a beast. Okay, I think he is everything that we thought he was going to be. And he's going to be a nice tandem to go in line with Kenneth Walker Jr. I do also like in this game, we saw Jordan Addison have a ridiculous catch on the sideline. N'Keal Harry that they brought in. I got to rep my Arizona State guys, so I loved to see N'Keal Harry brought into the preseason game and get some work early and often. Jalen Reagor played as well, but KJ Osborne and Justin Jefferson were out of this game, so Jordan Addison did have a couple of bad drops in this game. He was targeted 3 times. Ty Chandler got the work early for the Vikings. It wasn't Dwayne McBride but I think as the preseason gets along, Dwayne McBride figures to be a lot more involved in this offense. The other thing is Nick Mullins did look pretty good in this game. I would like to say that as a backup to Kirk Cousins in case anything did happen. Moving along to Friday's games, we had the Packers just absolutely romp the Bengals. Then again, the entire Bengals offense really didn't play. Some keynotes for this one is, my guy that I've been kind of toting about all offseason with the running backs with the Bengals was Chase Brown. He looked really inefficient. It did look like Zach Evans was the lead guy there, or Chris Evans, sorry. He had 7 attempts for 49 yards. Trevor Siemian had a nice showing, and Andre Iosivas from Princeton, gotta love it. I was repping my Princeton shirt the other day because Jono and I are both from that area. So, and New Jersey really doesn't have college football other than Rutgers and Princeton. And let's be honest, guys, those are pretty much like minor league teams. Although it was the first ever college football game for those of you who didn't know that. So the SEC, you're welcome from New Jersey. But on the Packers side, Jordan Love looked good. He looked pretty decent. He didn't play a lot. He had 10 reps or 10 passes, let me say. Sean Clifford came in and had a pretty nice game, 208 yards for the rest of the game, really. And then the receivers, it was just kind of a hodgepodge of the younger guys, but this whole receiving core is young and inexperienced, so to get those guys involved. You saw Jaden Reed had a couple catches, which is nice because I think he's going to have a significant impact on the receiving core this season. Moving along, we got the Falcons and the Dolphins. The Falcons had 19 points. The Dolphins had 3. And again, this was another game that Dolphins really didn't start a lot of their players, especially on offense. No Waddle, no Hill. And Jono and I talked about the AFC East. Check out that episode dropping tomorrow. Today, because I'm recording this for tomorrow. Holla. But we have discussed about the Miami offense, and really besides Hill and Waddle, who is going to be the next guy to step up. We we've talked about a couple of guys in this offense, Cedric Wilson, or River Craycraft, and who's really going to emerge in that third wide receiver position. From a running back standpoint, Devon Achane got a lot of the work. He had 10 rushes, only 25 yards on that. But he did have 4 receptions for 41 yards. So I think that is a part of the game that he's going to be involved in most, is going to be the receiving game. I think Mozart and Jeff Wilson Jr. are going to take a lot of the rushes in this offense, but Devon Achane is going to come in on third downs. And I think that's really good for him, especially early in the season while he still carves out a role on this team. I do think, I've talked about Achane and his value, and a lot of people drafting him. He is going in fantasy football drafts over Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mozart, but I think those guys are going to get the majority of the work, and especially down at the goal line too. For the Falcons, this is a young team. And especially on offense with a lot of people coming in, Bijan didn't play, one of the rookies that you thought would get some work in there, but he didn't play in this game. And there's a lot of people that are just trying to earn out spots on this team. It's nice to see them get a win. They scored less points against the Dolphins than the Braves did that night against my Mets. That was embarrassing. The Mets are embarrassing this season, but this is not baseball. This is a football channel. So let's move right along to talk about the Steelers and the Buccaneers. Highlights of this game. Kenny Pickett looked good. George Pickens looked like a beast. Even Baker looked pretty decent in this game. So it was nice to see both these offenses, and these are question marks that both Jono and I have with the Steelers and with Tampa with, really what is their passing game going to look like? And do we trust the quarterbacks that are throwing the football there? And with Kenny Pickett, and whether it's Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield coming in and really taking the work. Chase Edmonds did get work in this game. He seems like the guy that's going to be directly behind Rashad White, another ASU guy. But I think that Chase Edmonds, unless a veteran gets signed by this team, it's going to be Chase Edmonds getting the third down back and the rest back for Rashad White. And again, Godwin didn't play in this game. Mike Evans didn't play in this game. So who's really going to emerge as the third receiver or the fourth receiver besides Russell Gage? And with Tampa Bay, with the Steelers, it was nice to see their offense, the first team offense, run out there and perform really well. And again, there's guys that are going to earn their spots on this team. Deontay Johnson did play. The whole first team offense did play. Allen Robinson didn't get a lot of reps out there. I would like to see that the 3 wide receiver set with all 3 of those guys in there, and kind of what that's going to look like. Maybe in week 2, we might see a little bit more. Obviously, Najee Harris didn't play. And from the running back standpoint, they had a decent game, but they had a lot of guys run the football there. Going into the Giants and the Lions, we had the Lions squeak out a victory, 21-16. This is another game that there wasn't a whole lot of guys that are starting. It was good to see some of the backup guys for the Giants come in. David Sills led the receivers, 2 receptions, 36 yards. This receiving room is one of the biggest question marks for the Giants, is who's really going to be a pass catcher there besides Darren Waller. Is Jalen Hyatt going to come in? Is Isaiah Hodges going to step up? Darius Slayton, who's going to be the number 1 there? Or is it going to be more of a distribution around 2 different guys in this offense? For the Lions, again, a lot of their starters didn't play. We did see Jahmyr Gibbs get involved a little bit rushing, 6 for 19. And then he did add 1 reception for 18 yards. So it's good to see him involved, and same with Jameson Williams, even though we know he's going to miss the first 6 games of the season. I think other than that, we know kind of what this offense is going to look like when it's fully rolling out there. Moving on to the Commanders and Browns. Again, these are 2 offenses that we really wanted to see, especially early in the season, kind of what Deshaun Watson's going to look like, if the rust is off of him, what Sam Howell is going to look like. Jahan Dotson had a great reception for a touchdown where there's just some missed tackles at the 5-yard line. He spun in. I think he's going to be, a stud this season, and a sleeper guy that I think can outperform Terry McLaurin if Sam Howell can be consistent with the football. And really what I like, the big takeaway from the Washington Commanders game is that they really do, and this was even last year with Jacoby Brissett on the Browns, is that Jacoby Brissett was a very serviceable backup quarterback. And so if things go south with Howell, they can turn to Brissett, and this offense can roll. They have weapons all across the field, which is really nice. The receiving core is really good here with Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Scary Terry, and then Antonio Gibson as a receiving threat, which I really liked. We saw a lot of the starters play for both these teams. Chubb didn't play. I think Elijah Moore went down in this game with an injury, but he was just getting looked at on the sideline. I haven't heard a report of anything significant that happened to him. But then it was good to see the Browns, just like in a little extension of the Hall of Fame game, where the backups got a little bit more play, the rookies got a little bit more play, and it was good to see them in there, especially with Cedric Tillman on how he's going to be involved. I'll tell you what, Demetric Felton's making a real push to be involved in this offense a little bit more. I think a lot of people think that it was going to be Jerome Ford, who's going to be the backup there to Nick Chubb. But I'll tell you what, Felton is really starting to step up. And I think as a receiver and a runner, it's going to be really beneficial to have him with Deshaun Watson. I'll tell you, in the first 2 games that they're watching the Browns play, they got something special in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I watched him play at UCLA in the Pac-12, and this guy's very, very talented. I think he's raw. But he's a really talented, especially as a runner. But he plays a little bit beyond, even though he is raw, he plays beyond his years. We see him making smart decisions with the football. Another performance, 9 of 10, 100 yards and a touchdown, and then adding some more on the ground. He had 3 rushes for 11 yards. It was nice to see Deshaun Watson get out of the pocket and move a little bit. I'd love to see him slide a little bit more, because a couple of those were really awkward falls, or at least get a baseball player in there to teach him how to slide properly. Because a little of those, the end of the run looked kind of like Eli Manning trying to slide out there, where he kind of just fell down feet forward. Pretty awkward. But the Commanders did win this game, 17-15 over the Browns. The Cardinals and Broncos, there was a 1-point game. The Cardinals ended up winning 18-17. Really interesting. I mean, a lot of the reports are about Sean Payton just not allowing his players to get interviewed during the game. But some of the starters did play. Russell Wilson did get the start, 7 for 13, 93 yards. Looked a little bit more and had a touchdown. Looked a little bit more efficient. Samaje Perine got the start as well. 6 carries, 26 yards, 4.3 yard average. It's going to be the Samaje Perine show, and saying what the third running back is going to look like in this offense, because I think Javonte Williams is going to end up coming back and starting week 1. It's just a matter of how much work are they going to allow him to have when he comes in. So getting Perine kind of tuned up and ready to carry the work early in the season, I think is going to be important for him. Jerry Jeudy did have 2 receptions for 40 yards. I think he's and the touchdown. So he's continuing off how he finished last season. I think everyone is really rooting for a breakout season from Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton looked good as well. So I think this is an offense that's very, very talented, especially at their first 3 receivers, and they have a nice receiving tight end with Greg Dulcich. So Marvin Mims, I think, is going to end up taking that 3rd role. He didn't have a target in this game, but Jeudy and Sutton had 5 receptions combined. And they did have 75 yards combined with the 1 touchdown, both of them over 10 yards per catch, which is really nice to see. For the Cardinals, there's Colt McCoy ended up just playing the first couple series, was 4 for 4. Tyson Williams looked good as a running back there. It's going to be nice to have, with all the injuries that they've had this season already. They brought in Marlon Mack. He already out for the season with the torn Achilles. So who's going to end up taking the RB2 role there. Tyson Williams is making a case for him. He ran 10 times 51 yards, which is really nice to see from him. This receiving core is, we've talked about it with they're all short guys. Hollywood Brown in play. It seems like Hollywood Brown is going to be the number one guy there. Outside of that, I don't know how many of these guys I really want to own. Maybe Rondell Moore really late, but I don't think anything else is too significant from this game. Moving along, we had yesterday's games on Saturday. Starting off with my Jets against the Panthers, we shut them out 27-0. Bryce Young, he looked good. He looked efficient. What I will say more against Bryce Young is that the Jets defense is going to be, I think, better than it was last year, at least from the pass rush standpoint. They were getting after Bryce Young early and often in there. I think they recorded 5 sacks on the day, but they had quarterback hits, and they're monsters up there between Jermaine Johnson from last year, Chris Clemens, and the rest of that defensive line. They're really going to be able to get after quarterbacks this year. But the offense looked good. Zach Wilson looked good in there. Had a rough first series, but they got points on the board, which is good. And then one thing we talked about today is I think in recent years we've kind of avoided the tight end position from the Jets, but all 3 touchdowns yesterday went to tight ends. And I will say, making a real case to be the second running back behind Breece Hall is Izzy Abanikanda, and he just looks really good. That's 2 games in a row where he scored in the Browns game, and he had a really nice run to get them down to the 1-yard line. He should have scored. He should have got in, but he didn't, and it went to a tight end anyway on the very next play. But Izzy is making a case for him to be the backup. Michael Carter looked good too. He had some nice explosive runs. Izzy had 12 carries, 56 yards. Mike Carter had 4 carries, 19 yards. They both posted over 4 yards per carry. Izzy was involved in the receiving game as well, had 3 for 31 yards. And so was Michael Carter, had 34 yards and 2 receptions. He had the big one in the first quarter with Zach Wilson that he broke up the sideline. So that was nice. It was a 25-yarder. So it's nice to see the backup running backs kind of involved into this receiving game a little bit more. Other than that, I think the defense is really more of what is the standout from this game. Let's see, the final stats on Bryce Young were 4 for 6 for 21 yards. He was efficient. This is kind of a shell of the offense that we're going to see. Not a lot of the starters did play. They just they weren't heavily involved. From a running back standpoint, Miles Sanders didn't play. Chuba Hubbard got the start there, had 4 carries for 9 yards. But I think this is more credit to the Jets defense than it was against the Panthers offense. I think Bryce Young looked confident and comfortable back there. Even the times he did take hits, it didn't look like he was shying away from them. He'd get the ball out and release them. He didn't turn the ball over. But Matt Corral got absolutely smashed. And good for the Panthers from year 2, just saying we're in a position to go and get a stud like Bryce Young, and Corral's going to be a backup there even in his second year and going to continue to not get a lot of reps. But he got absolutely smashed back there. He was getting hit almost every drop back that he had. But it was hard to evaluate this offense because of how much they were getting shut down. They had a lot of short drives, 3 and outs, and that goes more of a credit to the Jets. Bills and the Colts. The Bills end up winning 23-19. It was nice to see some of the Bills with Barkley had some really, really good throws in here. I'll say Barkley looked very, very comfortable here, whereas Kyle Allen looked a little bit shaky at times, but Barkley looked good. 14 for 15, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, and both of his touchdowns, I mean, they were balls on the money. Really, really good throws into the end zone. But James Cook looked good. He had a touchdown early in the game, a nice bounce out run where he was able to get outside the defense and take it to the pylon. which is really nice to see that from him, because I think a lot of people are expecting him to be a bell cow this year. I think that there are some other guys there that are going to be figured in. Latavius Murray did look good as a change of pace guy. Damian Harris didn't play in this game. But from a receiving standpoint, I think that these are some guys. And again, we talked about the East today, where there's going to be some guys that we should talk about with Keyshawn Johnson, Andy Isabella, and then Marcel Aitman. And those three guys, I think one of those guys are going to make a case for being the number 4 receiver. I think that it's going to be Isabella moving more into the slot. He's shifty. He was in Arizona for the early part of his career, moving over to Buffalo. But that's something to keep an eye on the rest of the training camp, and to see throughout the preseason how he's used. For the Colts, Deion Jackson figured to be the starting running back there. Evan Hull and Jake Funk got a lot of work later in the game, but Kenyon Drake was in the game, had 5 carries, 10 yards, looked inefficient. The Colts, Anthony Richardson, this is the big thing here. Yeah, he's super athletic, and we see him make some good throws, but he had a really bad interception that he threw directly to. I mean, it was just a bad read. And this is what we've been saying. I think he has all the athletic gifts. I think it's going to be a year before we really see those things click and come together. We're going to see his athleticism on display this season, and it's going to be really nice to see that. But I think he's going to struggle a lot of the season, and especially against good defenses that can cover him. We've seen guys like this, right? Josh Allen's like this. He's been in the league. He's a big, strong, running quarterback with a big arm, and that's what Anthony Richardson is, and took Josh Allen a year or two to kind of figure it out before he stepped into the elite status. So I'd still want to kind of pump the brakes on him. It was nice to see some of the receivers. Isaiah McKenzie was used a lot in this game from the Colts standpoint. So I think he's a sneaky guy to kind of keep your eye on as well. Man, I need some water here. Moving along to the Titans and the Bears. Really awesome to see DJ Morgan involved. Had a big touchdown on his very first catch as a Bear. Justin Fields didn't really need to do much. He was 3 for 3, 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. One long one to DJ Moore, one long one to Khalil Herbert. And it was nice to see Khalil Herbert actually take the starting role and do something with it. I think Roschon Johnson really showed up too, had a really nice physical run, had a 24-yard run. Outside of the 24-yard run, though, he had some hard yardage, and I think he might be involved a lot on the short yardage part of the season or later on in the season. But he had 12 carries, 44 yards, but he did have the 24-yard run where it was a fantastic run. I mean, he just ran through a linebacker, cut it out to the outside, and took up the sideline. Khalil Herbert did have 4 rushes for 15 yards. Other than that, and there's not a ton of over targeting in this game. It's crazy. Roschon Johnson led the team in receptions, had 3 receptions on the day for 2 yards. Everyone else was 1 or 2 receptions. So from Titans standpoint, Malik Willis, he looked good at times. He looked bad at times. But Will Levis, he looked bad at times, including the seal to finish the game. It's a bad interception that he threw. Malik Willis had an interception as well. But Malik Willis had some really athletic plays in this game. But we knew that coming out of last year that he was going to be really raw. Tannehill's obviously going to be the guy there, and I think it's good for both these guys to kind of sit behind Tannehill and learn to play quarterback, because Tannehill, he's not an elite guy, but he is efficient with the football. It was nice to see Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears had a really good game. I think he's going to end up getting a nice backup role to Derrick Henry. And then none of the Traylon Burks and D-Hop didn't play in the game. So there's not a whole lot of other things to talk about from a receiving perspective. Bears did win the game 23-17, in case I didn't say that. Jaguars Cowboys. The Jaguars won this game 28-23. It was the starters did play for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence started the game, went 5 for 6, 36 yards. Did have an interception, but he did have a touchdown. What I want to say about this game is that Tank Bigsby is going to be figuring into cutting into a lot of ETN's workload. Tank Bigsby looked good, 9 carries, 52 yards, but he was also he looked good in the as a rusher. ETN's still going to figure to be the guy there, but like Jono and I have said, I think what's gonna hurt him is Tank Bigsby is going to be involved in significant carries, which is going to be the short yardage, which is going to be the goal line work. Christian Kirk did have the touchdown. Calvin Ridley got some reps in. It's nice to see 2 for 21 yards. From the Cowboys' perspective, Dak didn't start, and then Tony Pollard wasn't playing. But Deuce Vaughn is a guy that I think is going to be kind of a Darren Sproles role. He's short, he's shifty, he gets through the hole, and behind that offensive line, he is. I know all the memes, and people are making fun of him because he looks like a toddler running around with men, but he is getting lost behind that giant offensive line. And he was 8 carries for 50 yards. And I think he's going to, he also added 3 receptions for 6 yards. He's going to be involved heavily into this offense. Another guy we really haven't talked about is Jake Ferguson, and he did have a good game, 3 receptions, 38 yards, and he's going to be the tight end 1 here. And I think he's someone that's going to be undervalued. The Dallas Cowboys do like to use the tight end a lot, and Dak does like his tight ends. But moving along, we got the Eagles, Ravens. Ravens remain undefeated in the preseason since 2015. From this game, it was really Hurts didn't play, but Swift did get the start over Rashad Penny, and both of them did play in this game. They both ended up. Penny had 9 for 34. DeAndre Swift had 2 for 24. I think this is going to be whoever they're gonna switch series. I think they're both going to be heavily used in this offense. But then you didn't have Devonta Smith play, and you didn't have AJ Brown play in this game. Mariota, he was 7 for 11, 58 yards, but I don't think unless something happened to Jalen Hurts, I don't think a backup quarterback is someone we're really going to talk about too much. From a Ravens perspective, Blake Likely did leave the game due to an injury. Justice Hill looked really good. He had 3 carries, 48 yards, had a nice 37-yard scamper. He made a really awesome play, cutting it back across and getting to the outside and taking up the sideline. Gus Edwards, 4 for 21. It's really going to be, if J.K. Dobbins doesn't come back, who's going to be the running back there, or are they going to kind of shift in and out? Melvin Gordon did play. He had 6 carries, 16 yards. So I think it's going to be Melvin Gordon and Gus Edwards early. Justice Hill being a change of pace, but Justice Hill, it did show that he had kind of that next gear with this team. Let's see. The next game that we had, or the final game of yesterday, was the Chargers and the Rams. The Chargers ended up winning 34-17. From this game, Quentin Johnson did have a touchdown. He also did have a bad drop in this game. But a lot of the other starters didn't play. Austin Eckler obviously sat. Elijah Dotson led the rushers with 6 rushes for 92 yards, broke off a long 40-yard run. But Josh Kelly got early work, and he was pretty efficient with it as well, 9 for 54. But Keelan Doss, I think, is going to make a case for being the number 4 here. He looked really good. Was involved on third down catches. Had a big catch for 28 yards. From the Rams, Stetson Bennett. If anything happened to Stafford, I think they got something with Stetson Bennett. He's an older guy, won 2 national championships with Georgia. He looks good. 17 for 29, 191 yards and a touchdown. From the Rams' perspective, outside of Cooper Kupp, who's going to come in? It was nice to see Puka get involved, and he did have the touchdown. Didn't really do much else besides that. I think he had 3 receptions. Let me check. 3 receptions, 32 yards. So a nice average on that. And then moving on to today's games on Sunday, we had 2. We had a doubleheader. We had the Chiefs and Saints. Kendre Miller did leave this game due to an injury, was getting checked out by trainers on the sideline. The Saints ended up winning 26-24. So obviously for the Chiefs, Mahomes didn't play, or he did. Sorry, he did play. He was 2 for 2 for 15 yards, but they were taken out. It was nice to see Richie James get involved, but with really the Chiefs, it's going to be who's going to emerge as wide receiver one. And we've had a lot of talks about Sky Moore, with Rashee Rice, even Justin Ross, Richie James. These guys are figuring to be involved, MVS. But it was kind of just a lot. Nico Remigio led them with 4 receptions for 71 yards, but those were later in the game. For the Saints, Derek Carr did look pretty good. 6 for 8, 70 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown went to A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry did look really good. So yeah, I mean, I think he can make a case for emerging as a number 2. I don't know. We'll see what Michael Thomas ends up looking like. Michael Thomas did have 1 reception for 16 yards, but A.T. Perry looked really good in this game. So he's someone to keep an eye on the rest of camp, the rest of preseason, to see kind of what he does, and how he's working with Carr. Jameis Winston did look good in this game. 11 for 13, had the touchdown, 92 yards. And then the second game was the Raiders and the 49ers. The Raiders ended up winning 34-7. This Raiders offense looked good. They were clicking on all cylinders. I think, again, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play, but if anything did happen to him, I think they got someone in Aiden O'Connell. He looked good, 15 for 18, and 2 of those were drops. So he should have been more efficient than that. He looked really, really efficient through the air, 141 yards and a touchdown. And Zamir White looked really, really good. His numbers really don't look like it. He did 13 for 43. He only averaged 3.5 or 3.3 yards per carry. He did have a touchdown, but their ground game altogether did look good. They had a lot of guys that really emerged in there, and there was turnovers a lot in this game, a lot of fumbles, just bad decisions on special teams. But it's preseason. What do you expect? Then. From the 49ers standpoint, Trey Lance did play. Sam Darnold did play. Trey Lance looked decent at times. He had some really nice throws, had some smart decisions. I think his athleticism is something that is going to be a struggle for some teams, but Purdy's going to be the starter here, and it's really going to be either Trey Lance or Sam Darnold who's going to be the backup. Darnold looked really good at times, and he missed some wide open guys. By the time Darnold was playing, the corners for the Raiders were just getting kind of shredded up. Besides Elijah Mitchell didn't play and CMC didn't play, so nothing really to report from the running back standpoint, unless we're talking about number 3s, where Tyrone Davis-Price led the team with 9 rushes for 29 yards. So nothing really exciting from the 49ers standpoint. Well, that wraps it up. Join us, tune in to our AFC East episode that should be dropping later today. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.